Evening, everyone. Welcome. On behalf of Thai Silicon Valley, welcome you all here. This is a terrific program we have, which is evident from a full house. So on behalf of Thai again, thank you for coming. My name is Raj Desai. I'm the Executive Director at Thai. And how many of you are members here? That's great. Great. Thanks for all your support. I'd like to introduce our President, Venkatesh Shukla, to give you a brief outline on Thai and where we are going. And then we'll be following that with the program for this evening. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Raj. So a couple of quick, now that I got you all here, I thought I'd run a couple of messages by you. We have ThaiCon, planning in full swing, and we have some of the key leadership you see of ThaiCon here. And I'd like to, I'd like you to see them so that if you have any desires, if you are getting involved with planning for ThaiCon, you should get in touch with them. So convener is here. Pradeep Madan, is Pradeep there? Please, Pradeep. Is Jagdish here? BV Jagdish? No, he's not here. Okay. So Pradeep is one of the conveners for ThaiCon. We also have the content chair for one of the content chairs for ThaiCon here, Naveen, and he is involved with putting together content for Friday and Saturday. We also have the sponsorship chair, Saurabh, right here. And if you want to learn the skill of separating companies from their money, this is the guy to talk to. It's a very, very valuable skill in life. And so if you want to learn that, join, volunteer.
We are not-for-profit.
We are not-for-profit, yes. And also, for different tracks, there are teams being formed, and we have one of the leaders for big data is here. And where is Piyush? I thought he was here. Oh, right there. Okay, good. So if you have any ideas and proposals on doing anything on big data space, please talk to Piyush here. So that's one announcement. The second one is that how many of you have heard about the Thai accelerator called Launchpad? Just raise your hand. Okay, it's not very widely known, so please spread the word. Essentially, if you have great ideas, good team, Thai has put together a fund which will invest in your company $50,000 and give you space and give you a mentor. And essentially, the plan is to help you accelerate your success as much as you can. Thai's whole mission is wealth creation through entrepreneurship. So this is yet another step that we have taken this year. And so the first batch is starting in this month, actually. The next batch will start in July. So please spread the word and be ready for the next one. So those are the two things that I want to talk about. And I think onto the event. I want to introduce the moderator for this event, and she will take it forward. So the person I want to introduce is she's a partner at Venture. She's a partner and director of corporate strategy at IBM and Venture Capital Group partner. She is over 20 years experience in IBM in different leadership roles, and she is primarily responsible for driving IBM Watson's ecosystem, which is what the major announcement today was about. And so without further ado, please welcome Savita.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Venk, for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to host the event here. And my last panelist just arrived, and so, all right. Today actually is, some of you may have seen this. It's really a historic day for IBM in terms of the major announcements that were made earlier this morning by Janita Mehri, IBM CEO, and the senior leadership. We announced the formation of a brand new business unit, a division called the IBM Watson Group. We do this only once every decade or so. I mean, for those of you who remember the 60s, that's when the System 360 business unit was launched. In the 80s, it was the PC division, which came and went, but nevertheless, it was a new division. In the 90s, it was the launch of our services business unit. And now it really is the launch of the IBM Watson division. So we're really excited here to be here to share with you our story about what this means to the community, to startups, to entrepreneurs. And to tell the story, I'd like to invite my panel members to the stage. Tim, Piyush, Ian, and Theo, would you please come up? All right, so please join me in welcoming our panel members. Before we get started, I think it'll be better served for the panelists to introduce themselves directly. So why don't we do that? And maybe you could all position your sort of introduction and your interest in the context of analytics, big data, IBM, Watson, and what all this means to you. So with that, Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening. My name is Tim Guleri. I'm a partner at Sierra Ventures, and our firm's been in business for about 31 years. We're doing early stage tech investing, and I've been with Sierra for 11 years. As I was mentioning earlier, I'm an entrepreneur by training. I had 2 companies before coming to Sierra in 2001. One was in the CRM space, and the other one was in the e-commerce space. One went public, and the other one was an M&A transaction in the 99-2000 time frame. And I joined as a partner to lead the software infrastructure group at Sierra, and I've been really lucky to get partnered up with great entrepreneurs like yourself, and taken a couple of companies public. And as you all know, that we're always looking for which wave is up and to the right. And our fund, Sierra, is focused on early stage tech investing, only in the enterprise space. So that's something that differentiates us. We don't do ad tech, we don't do gaming, and the many other ways to make money in technology businesses. We're very focused on the enterprise, and hence our partnership with IBM, which goes many decades now. And inside the context of the enterprise, big data is a specialty of the firm and my interests as well. My firm took Teradata public back in the day, so I guess in some sense we created the original problem. And then I backed and funded a company called Greenplum, which we sold to EMC about 4 years ago, which is now the basis of the pivotal division, which is a $1 billion unit now. And more recently, we've done a bunch of work in next generation data processing backends and next generation predictive analytic frameworks on top of that. And also have a thesis around vertical big data applications, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So we've been collaborating with certainly the IBM team and the broader big data movement that's going on. I'm very pleased with the announcement today as it relates to Watson, and very happy to be here. The fact that the room is full tells me that you all are not just here for the great Indian food, which I'm sure is being served in the back, but actually what the whole conversation is about. So thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Tim. Yes?
Hi everybody, my name is Piyush Malik and I'm an IBMer. Many of you have seen me here. I am a long-time volunteer for TAI as well, and as being said, I co-chair the big data programs here. But let's go back to my background. I'm a 25-year veteran of the management consulting industry and a data geek. I've been dealing with data all my life. I consult with companies, primarily Fortune 500 companies, to make them more data-driven. And of late, for the last 15 of the last 25 years that I've been in the industry, I've focused on business intelligence, CRM, analytics, information management, and all of that. And for the last 3-4 years, I've been focused on big data as an emerging technology, emerging market. And so I specialize in incubating new businesses within our services division, and as part of that, I deal with not only big data applications for our customers, have been getting onto the big data journey, but also extracting value from that data. And part of that is a very exciting opportunity for Watson announcement today, and many of my team members have implemented Ready for Watson program, and we'll talk more about it as time goes, but I'm glad to be here.
Great, thank you. Piyush? Ian?
Hey folks, so I'm Ian. I'm the CEO of Augmetics. We are the largest Google Glass startup.
Hey, there's another one there.
I see, I'm not alone. Yeah, so Augmetics is the largest glass startup any way you want to measure it. We've got 30 people in our company. Actually, 2 offices, one in San Francisco, one in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where a lot of our software engineering occurs. So, long story short, we are tackling the biggest problem in healthcare, the fact that doctors spend 30 to 40% of their day on the computer feeding the beast, not paying attention to the patient in front of them, not seeing more patients per day. We utterly fixed this problem, and so we have a lot of happy doctors at our pilot sites throughout California, and we're rapidly expanding. So IBM Watson is absolutely core to our roadmap. Right now we're very focused on simply alleviating the EHR documentation push and pull, but over time we aim to provide insight and guidance, and we would love and intend to power that engine with Watson, in fact. So that's our interest here. And my background's in medical devices before glass. Worked a long time at Edwards Life Sciences. They make heart valves. Intuitive Surgical, not too far from here. Arguably, they're the leader in augmented reality in healthcare and have been for some time. So that's what I'm all about. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah?
Hi, Sarika. Hi, everyone. My name is Theodore Vasilakis. I'm the founder and CEO of Metanautics. We're a big data analytics startup. We make products for large-scale enterprises to analyze their data end-to-end. And my background is from Google and from Microsoft. So I spent 8 years at Google prior to starting Metanautics, and a few years at Microsoft as well, where especially at Google, led a lot of large teams. One of them was the Dremel team, which was a system that really kind of radically made it easier for people to get at all the different kinds of data that Google has and express the analysis that they want over that data without going into lots of different kinds of systems. And so part of the genesis of the idea for Metanautics was that, wow, a lot more companies are now looking at data as a competitive differentiator and are facing competition on data and are going to need some of these tools that are a couple of steps ahead of where some of the more traditional tools are, and so that's really our goal. And Watson is a really interesting component when it goes into the NLP and unstructured content space, where on the one hand, right, you want to pull together data from databases, you want to pull together data from very large file systems, you want to do a lot of things scalably, but at the same time, you want to be able to delve into the natural language aspect of things, right? And I think pulling all of that really deep research tech with the systems deployments, with software, with all of these things that IBM can bring to bear is really an interesting partnership for us. So,
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Theo, and thanks everyone. Well, feedback, so I have my own ears. So. All right. So for us to get into the conversation, what I thought was let's I've been working on Watson and the Watson ecosystem almost from the inception of the business unit, and so we hear a lot of different questions about, what is Watson, can it solve these kinds of problems, what kind of problems what it can do and what it can't do. So let's just level set a little bit. I want to establish a baseline and then really turn it over and get everybody's perspective on what would cognitive and Watson mean to each of them, to Tim as an investor, to you both as entrepreneurs, and to Piyush as kind of driving our services business in the analytics space. So for those of you who remember, in February 2011 was when research had set this grand challenge, IBM Research. And every 10 years or so, we'll do something like that, where we need to go establish a landmark milestone. Last time we did that was with Deep Blue in '98 or so. So in 2011, research had been working on this technology, natural language, Q&A, reasoning engine that would work on huge amounts of unstructured information and really respond in a natural manner to natural language queries. So with that, we established that first milestone with the by winning the Jeopardy finals. That year, we then decided we'd spend some time on sort of thinking through commercialization of Watson. What are some domains? What are some industries where there are problems that are ripe and ready really for Watson to be applied to, where Watson can actually contribute tangible business value and make a difference. So no surprise, one of the first verticals we embarked on was healthcare, and we'll hear more on that from Ian. But I would encourage you to look at some of the material we have in your handouts. let me sort of just say that the first vertical, where I think where we established the brand, we call this our 3E strategy. We established the brand with our foray into healthcare. You'll see the case studies on WellPoint, on Memorial Sloan Kettering, MD Anderson, and so we developed a class of healthcare advisors that are plugged into the flow of care and are delivering real value. So that's the established strategy. The second one in May 2012 was where we executed and began our extend strategy. This is where we said, what is our cross-industry play? How do we bring Watson to the masses? So then there's a bunch of industries that are sort of consumer-facing. From an IBM perspective, they would be B2B2C, if you will, right? So where our clients have a direct interaction with the consumers. So there we have a class of advisors called Watson Client Engagement Advisors. Whether this is for contact centers, for upsell, cross-sell, marketing, whatever the case might be. So that was the second component of our strategy, establish and extend. And that really brings me to today's conversation. It's all about the ecosystem. It's about our embed strategy. We know that we're not going to get to this new wave of cognitive alone. IBM is not going to do this alone. And therefore, a very significant part of our strategy is opening up the platform to entrepreneurs like yourselves, inviting companies to come build on Watson. We have RESTful APIs that are published. We have use cases. We have criteria, all of that defined. And now we're really out here to get that message out and get some feedback, in particular, about what would this mean to your startup, to your company. And for example, from someone like Tim and Piyush, are there some industries that are better aligned, or that are better suited to leverage Watson than others? Right? So that's really, let's kind of get a perspective on that. And Tim, again, maybe you want to start on that?
Absolutely. So, when I put on my VC hat, I think everybody in the room that has or is involved with an entrepreneurial company knows that the biggest advantage that you have against the established competition, because there's always competition, is speed. And speed has the essence of getting your product to market in a very, very fast time and fast rate. And that's always been true, whether you were doing a startup and I was an entrepreneur, or the last decade, as I've been as a VC. But what's really interesting, I think, now in this decade forward, is that the number of users, right, that can potentially interact with an application that you might be thinking of is just exploding because of the advent of mobile technology. So when I was an entrepreneur building an application in the client-server era, you could only think about X number of people that would interact with the application. And we built one in CRM. This was the granddaddy before Salesforce.com. We built the company to about $700 million, and we were done. The company got bought. But now, the same, if you move the clock forward 20 years forward, you see the number of consumption points is exploding. So if you think about it from the vantage point of an entrepreneur, you really have a tremendous opportunity to unlock a lot of value, which equates to how big your company can become if your application is really delivering this most optimal vertical experience in a particular industry. And everything underneath the application, including the workflow, the database, and other services, have to be embedded into the workflow and hidden away from the end user. And I think that's what's going to unlock a tremendous amount of opportunity in the different verticals that people are sure talk about. So as a venture capitalist, when I look at, if I go back to my days when I was CEO building my application, just the way I used Oracle, just as a transactional database, that's the way in which these advanced capabilities like text recognition at speed in the cloud are the capabilities that companies, Watson would enable to get inherently embedded into an application, so that when that capability is being used, your users get the most optimal mobile experience. And mobile, as you know, is all about speed. When I was coming here, I was interacting with my mobile device, trying to find maps and traffic and all that stuff, and that's become a way that we're going to be. So with that mindset, put that aside. Now let's take a look at from a CIO standpoint. I'll give you one quick example and then turn it over to the rest of the panelists. We at Sierra have 80 chief information officers on our advisory board. These are the heads of guys. These are guys that spend $2-3 billion a year on technology.
With IBM.
with IBM and other folks, to be fair. And I was in the CIO's office in December, and this guy spends about $100 million with SAP. And he is cutting down his spend with SAP down to $50 million, and taking $50 million and deploying that into mobile applications in this particular vertical yet to be invented, right? So that's the context of the customer. And so the customer is asking entrepreneurs like you as to build applications that are responsive to his particular mobile employees and mobile customers' needs. And those applications are going to be delivered on the edge with all these capabilities that make them very efficiently used, built into the applications. So when I see capabilities like Watson being released, and speed being the premium that you have as an entrepreneurial companies against the incumbents, I feel very pleased to see those, because you can pay by the drink, you can pay by the transactions, the number of buckets of transactions that you consume, and that just lets you not have to invent the science, but actually invent the solution, which is what is eventually going to grow your value as an enterprise. And that's what obviously entrepreneurs and venture capitalists get paid to build. So it's with that context, I'm very pleased to see this happen. And you know, the faster you can get your product to market without worrying about all the science in the back end is what I think entrepreneurs should be focused on. It's good to see that innovation coming forward.
So let's kind of tag on that industry question also. So that's great, Tim. So you're saying let's think of it as a relational database capability. Yep. You have NL capability, and so and it should be as consumable as relational databases. So curious, when you think, I mean, you've been seeing the Watson sort of early products and so on. Are there some verticals, some industries that lend themselves more to being able to leverage this new capability?
I'll give a quick answer. I don't want to hog the panel. I'm sure the folks have a lot of perspective. I think NLP, because it's obviously natural language, so anything that's C2B facing is an obvious vertical that's going to be consuming this. If you look at, I'm on the board of a mobile infrastructure company, and you look at where the consumption is for that particular company, travel, hospitality, certainly financial services, again on the retail side of the business, anything where there's a consumer that has to interact with the enterprise or with the capability, I think that's a natural place for this to take.
Great. Great.
But just to add just a quick comment to that, I just yesterday was talking to someone, one of the major health insurers, and they were just in the middle of implementing a lot of the new ideas from Obamacare and a lot of the new structures from that, and a lot of wellness kinds of applications that obviously Watson has already been used for. And one of the things they were faced with is all the different kinds of data sets that they had to integrate from lots of very different applications. And even though it might sound like more of a traditional data integration problem that you might use a little bit of Teradata for and a little bit of Informatica for, the things that they were having the most trouble with is interpreting all of that data and sort of comparing, I'm getting a little bit from this and a little bit from that. And I think, I think Watson can certainly be useful directly with consumers, but even inside of the large enterprises, some of the more traditional tasks, given that Watson can, integrate some of that knowledge, will be very directly useful in building enterprise apps.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just, let's just kind of carry on with that, Theo. So is that what, from sitting as kind of CEO and founder of Meta-Analytics, is that how you see Cognitive or Watson? Is that how you would imagine consuming that capability in your?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big directions that we're interested in, because really what we're trying to do with Meta-Analytics, right, is to cause the systems to fade into the background and and focus on the data, right? So what Meta-Analytics wants to do is be able to say to people, look, treat all this data like tables, okay? Just describe what you want to do in very high-level terms, and forget about all the details of how that is all executed. You shouldn't have to be an expert in every stage of the analysis. And I think one of the big components of that is relating things across schemas and across lots of data sources where the sort of natural language processing and the inference matters a great deal.
Okay, great. I'm sure we'll get more into it with the use case. So, Ian, I think I love your use case, right? I mean, the PCP, you're going to transform our PCP experience, right? So what would cognitive, what would a Watson mean to you, kind of, right? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, for our company, as I was mentioning right now, our Gen 1 use case, it's really rudimentary documentation and noting on behalf of the doctor paired with simple queries and pulls from the EHR on demand. I want to know your last 3 blood pressures. I want to know your white blood cell count. But I think when we start slipping in technologies like Watson, we can do so much more than those simple queries. And we can actually provide on-demand real guidance and insight that go way beyond what even the doctor would even think to ask without him even having to ask it. So I mean, it's almost like what can't it do? It's the mind is boggled with how many ways we plan on deploying it. I mean, for one, it's going to make our existing processes much more efficient. But beyond that, it's going to enable a lot more features for us that are core. And just on the topic of industries and where could this go, I mean, I just have to plug healthcare. I mean, doctors talk about information burden, documentation burden, scarce people, highly paid people that need these sort of tools and systems to revolutionize their workflow. It just does not get better than that. So, I mean, all the other use cases are fascinating as well, but perhaps I'm a bit biased.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we're sold on healthcare, right? I mean, as you know, that was one of our first verticals we entered in, and really, I mean, I was not had no minimal, just as a patient, right, knowledge of healthcare. But now, just understanding this payer, provider, patient ecosystem, and the various processes, and how rich it is with problems, we were absolutely sold. And I think from the initial class of Watson solutions, you can see that's why we've got our first footprint.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Piyush, I think it would be really interesting, I think, for this audience, really to, from an services perspective, I mean, day in and day out, you're with clients, you're driving these big data analytics engagements for them, the ready for Watson engagements, right? So what does cognitive mean in all these engagements? And are there some industries that resonate more than others?
Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it. Again, as an IBM internal person, but still being agnostic. Technology agnostic is what term I use, because I get the liberty to be with the clients, just listen to their problems, and give a solution, whether it is IBM solution or not. So let me just also go back to the basics. What does cognitive mean? Cognitive means self-learning, self-optimizing, and making the lives of common people easier. And I see Watson being a technology, it's a set of technologies put together in a very simple form whereby you can improve the life of everyday common man in any industry. You take just an example, I'll just leave the healthcare out. I'm sold on healthcare, but let me give another example here. Customer service, for example. It touches every industry. Think about it, how much time we spend on the phone trying to dial those numbers, trying to get to somebody, right? And what can we do to improve the lives of a common man to actually give the answers to questions that he seeks? I mean, you could basically have a database of all the possible answers. That's what Watson has. All the published literature, as well as incoming knowledge from people's experiences, and it trains itself as it goes along based on the feedback that it senses and gets from the user. And then what you have then is a system that is augmenting the human capability. And apply that to any industry you can think of, and you will have gains. It will have productivity gains. It will have, customer service industry. So you will, I hate to say this, but by the deployment of this technology, you will make less mistakes, and you will, the customer service reps will be more efficient. So what that means is productivity gains means lesser number of people needed. It doesn't mean unemployment will grow. It will just mean that you will have been freed up to do higher value work. It will be more satisfying, and you can be more happy. And in terms of other industries, financial services, we just announced a deal this morning in Singapore with a bank where we are using, they are going to be using Watson for wealth management as an advisory services. So I'm excited about it. I hope I get to use a Watson which will predict which shares will go up and what to buy. And of course, I'll personally benefit from it, but all of us can.
You know, I'm excited that you bring up customer service because it's actually one of the early deployments that we're doing for Metanomics with one of our partners. And the interesting part about customer service to me is, first of all, it wasn't an area that we had really thought about deeply. It was something that the customer brought. But it's one of those areas where it's all exceptions, right? Yes, there's some rules about how you want to do customer service in general, and so part of what our product does for the customer is, you know, analyze the data flow through their product and you know, help them explore what happened at the customer site. But I think one of the areas where, you know, we'd love to explore Watson, and where I think it's sort of generally applicable, is to say, okay, you've built an app and it really maps to a specific problem, but then the exceptions come up, right? And that's, I think, where some of the natural language and you know, some of the more general tech can be useful, also across verticals, right? So clearly having the vertical knowledge helps, but you know, being able to deal the exceptions in any application is also really interesting.
But just to your point, natural language processing is not a new technology, right? It's been there. What is different now that it's become all the more very attractive and sexy, and of course bringing it to the maximum number of people and maximum industries? That's what I think has changed. But what's your perspective?
No, I agree with that, and I think that, you know, for us, the packaging in a more service-oriented system is actually what makes it easy to deploy. You know, if it was a more traditional system where we had to, you know, pull binaries and link with it and be on a tight cycle.
You want to consume a RESTful API.
Exactly, right? If we can, you know, use it to push some data into it, do some analysis, and then get some results out of it, I think that's the most valuable part for us.
Yeah. Actually, could you just kind of, this as a natural lead into our topic of use cases. So would you say, this is to you, Thea, is it really the customer service use case? Is that your primary? I mean, without revealing any trade secrets here, what are some use cases where you actually see yourself being able to leverage a Watson capability?
Sure. So, you know, so we're still a stealth mode company, so I you know, can't talk too much about the details, but I alluded to this customer service deployment. So, what part of what our system does is help enterprises track data flows. Who saw what data, right? And you know, when did they see it? What did they do with it, right? So this is, I think, a pain point that as more organizations are becoming data-driven, it becomes critical to them, right? Especially, you know, so in a health organization, these kinds of things, right? And so those are some of the areas where, you know, you start to want to ask fairly general questions. And you know, those are some of the places where we see somebody saying, okay, well, the tool supports this and the query engine supports that, but I just want to ask this completely general thing.
Okay, great. So Ian, building on your basic sort of primary care, so data entry, EMR, and domain work, what are some futuristic sort of use cases you envision for Augmetics, you know, with the Watson capability?
Yeah, well, I mean, also we are a little bit in stealth mode too, so I'm going to have to paint with broad brush here. I mean, as I was mentioning, we envision a world where, you know, we're not only augmenting the doctor-patient interface and in some sense rehumanizing the doctor-patient interaction, we're mining that data at the same time. So in essence, we are sitting on the most valuable information in the entire universe, the doctor-patient interaction by the thousands. So not only do we want to assist, but we want to pull and create a virtuous cycle there and make that actionable information. And only a fraction of that information actually makes it into the EHR today. And in a very bad way, it makes it in the EHR. What about the rest of the 99% that actually resides in that more conversational graph? How do we get information out of that? And then what do we do? How do we deploy it? We're the answer to both ends of that, or that's what we aspire to be. And going out into the future, I mean, it goes beyond the clinic doctors that we're focused on. I mean, we would like to deploy these sort of technologies to doctors in an inpatient setting, doctors performing surgery, doctors in an ER and doing rounds, and even the entire healthcare provider team. I think that there's a place for them all to be roped into this kind of service over the long run. I mean, this is very grandiose. What we're doing is much simpler and smaller scale for now, but hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture. I mean, going even further, I think there's an Augmetics for just about any busy professional that has too much documentation, is mobile, scarce, and highly paid and needs their hands. So if you really want to be futuristic, and I think the sort of natural language processing and guidance that Watson can provide is going to be critical in making this possible.
I also want to just give you the benefit of the last 2 days I spent at CES in Vegas, which was a big electronic, consumer electronics show, and the architectural shift that's happening with the mobile sort of endpoints that I talked about obviously also applies to Internet of Things. And I think this move that IBM has made with Watson is actually really good for IBM as well. Because if you think about how these mathematically based closed loop systems work, the more data you throw at them, the more tuned they get and the better they become. So if you imagine a world in which Watson was implemented as a single system in all IBM customers, would probably not be as valuable to IBM in the long run than opening it to the folks that are in this room and others that can actually throw a lot of data sets at the engine, and the engine becomes actually more accurate in the way it behaves and predicts, right? So I think it's the fact that you're exposing it to all these use cases that entrepreneurs could bring to it can actually create much more efficiency that comes out of the engine itself, which I think is great for anybody that's on the technology. So that's sort of one point. And the best use case of this, I was actually walking the halls of CES, and I see Martha Stewart, right there in front, and she's at the LG booth, right? Yeah. Which makes obviously all these kitchen appliances. So the demo that these guys were giving was that you can actually text commands to the cloud, and then that beams into your kitchen, and you can control your fridge, and you can tell your Roomba to start, or their equivalent of Roomba to start, kind of cleaning the floor and all that. But what's interesting is a text-based interface, and you can see a world in which you just pick up your phone and you just say, hey, what's missing in the fridge because you're heading to the grocery store, or start this cycle or shut this machine down, and that should all work seamlessly. And that's going to come from obviously cognitive recognition and the translation that happens in the cloud, and happens at scale and happens very accurately. So you can see these worlds converging, where on the consumer application side, we're opening the interfaces to sort of machine input, and on the other side, you're seeing these cognitive engines becoming more advanced. I'm shocked every day when I speak to the Google interface and how accurate it is. And then just sort of the more you speak to it, the more accurate it is, right? So that tells you how these engines learn at scale, and I think it's something that IBM will also benefit from.
That's exciting. Recently, just in the last, I think from CES, we heard a lot about the IoT. Internet of Things, I think I was talking to one of you, has been a concept, it's coming, but you're giving examples of IoT being ready for cognitive, really.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So, I'm sorry, please.
To the point that I just brought up, Martha Stewart, right? What has come to your mind? Jail. So I'm thinking compliance is a use case.
Compliance, yes.
Compliance to rules in different countries. Somebody's closing their ears. Well, this is something which, at least I face this challenge with a number of my clients, where they want to make sure they are complying with the policies. There are, tax implications in different countries. What if there was a simple system that would learn from all the data, all the text available, and it simplifies life of a CFO. Likewise, I would say, simplifying life of any executive is the goal of a cognitive system. But I'm a kid who was brought up in the Star Trek era. So when you talk about CES, I can only think of gizmos, and guess what? My next Watson has to be on my watch. So hopefully there'll be a wearable Watson soon.
All right. Awesome. So, we just want to make sure we have time for the audience questions, but there's one question I think I'd like people to respond to, which is really the topic for today. What does the IBM opening up Watson, to the ecosystem, what does it really mean? I think it's really important to capture, as entrepreneurs, as CEOs, what is it that you would be looking for from IBM? And same likewise from as an investor, what can IBM bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? What does the CEO bring to the table? And how do we make all this work, given that IBM is opening up the platform? So in any order, please, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
I mean, on my end, there's just absolutely no way that our small startup could build a technology like Watson. It never in our wildest dreams. So we were so happy that this type of service is being unleashed to the masses, and we're happy to feed it and see the ecosystem grow. I think that's the way the way this ecosystem is developing right now. So I guess that's all I have to add. We're not going to develop NLP and cognitive from the ground up. Someone else has got to do it. We're happy to feed it.
I think from the startup perspective, I would say, besides the deep tech, obviously, I think having a model where smaller companies can work productively with a much larger company, and where you're also creating sort of an environment where customers and existing customers who are already working with you can try new things, I think is another way that, pulling the technology and the business together.
A Watson store,
Exactly.
where they can try meta-analytics powered by Watson.
And
Yeah.
combinations of other things, I think, is another very important marketing aspect for smaller companies.
So I think we hear that a lot, a go-to-market channel, right? And Ian, I would say the complementary side also holds good, just for this audience. So in as much as you are not going to be developing this NLP capability, incubating talent and research, we're not going to be building this super cool Google Glass app for the PC, right? And I think you'll see it, some of us, please do take the time to check out our use cases. We did announce the first 3 built-on powered by Watson partners, and one of them is a social wellness app. Another one is a guided selling app, right? I mean, you're trying to, I want my Nike gear for this camping trip, and it's coming up with, it understands what you want, it's leading you through that process. The third one is a hospital equipment procurement. These are solutions, the next generation of innovative solutions we're not going to build ourselves. So we really need those ideas to build on the Watson platform. So Tim, I think it would be really valuable to hear, what, as an investor and, from representing, speaking for your portfolio companies, what would you like IBM to bring to the table? What do you bring to the table, and how do we make this partnership work?
Yeah, no, so I think the answer actually lies in what ascribes value to a startup company today. And I go back to when I was an entrepreneur, when my first company, Creation, I was just talking about it, 1991. When I went for my first VC pitch, they asked me, okay, what's the IP? Like, what is it that you've really built? How many tables are there in your relational database? Blah, blah, blah. And I had to convince them how this was such a cool IP stack that I built, which then led to the investment and success in the company. That mindset has completely changed now in venture capital. You do not have, which is not to say that IP is not important in a startup company, I'm not saying that. I am saying that given we're living in a world of cloud computing where services are assumed to be powering your application that you're building. So the question I got when I raised my first cent, and the fervor with which I got the question, is not the case today. Today, when you walk into a venture capitalist's office to raise money, they expect you to be running your infrastructure on some cloud and providing value on top. So the way the venture ecosystem and the venture growth model has changed is people realize that there's a premium to go to market and innovating in sales, marketing, and customer access. Because you got to realize, when I was an entrepreneur, you kind of had 300 million people here in the US, and that's about the extent of your market. You slice and dice that, and you get to much smaller numbers. And suddenly, you're down in the middle space. 5 billion phones out there. You've got a global market. So the innovation that happens in global market and how companies scale is where value is being ascribed more. On the consumer side, it's very obvious when you look at Snapchat or one of these other companies, right? And no revenue, but sort of saying no to $3 billion acquisition by Facebook, which I'm not sure how you do that, but that's another topic. But nonetheless, companies come in today and pitch Sierra and say, hey, we've only consumed $1 million, $1.5 million, and we've got 100 customers. This is our average transaction volume. Here's the customer lifetime value, and all that stuff has got very little to do with the technology. It's the stuff that you've done on top. So that is the shift that's happened in venture capital, and that is a very important strategic shift which benefits you because you can start consuming. And the reason I'm making a big point about this is because, you know, technologists, right, that are in this room love technology. And, you know, the mindset is you gotta build something that is so unique and so tough. Well, that's how it was done 20 years ago. Now that's not the case. If you want to innovate, you should really go to market fast. You should fail fast, redo, retry on top of these platforms, and really build on top of the application stack or the verticalized mobile application or analytic application that you might be building. And with that backdrop, services like Watson become really important. You know, obviously, software with the cloud infrastructure is phenomenal. I got to meet Lance. He was just amazing exec. Really impressive individual.
We'll be back to see you in the next.
Yeah. And I think, you know, and when Ginny was here and we had dinner with her, I was telling her, and I was obviously, you know, talking about the other cloud provider, which we shouldn't name in this room. But you guys took it seriously and you made a move in it. So the whole market is moving to a services-based model, and innovation is on top of the stack, and that's what we still looking to fund. So you guys should use that as a shift in the market and really use these services that are coming towards you as you think about your business.
To create value. That's where they're. All right. Great. So I think, Raj, you wanted to open it up for questions. I think we have some time now. Otherwise, you know, of course, we have some more discussion we can have.
You haven't told us the specific nature of how Watson will be accessed. We know it's in the cloud, but is it a private cloud, is it a public cloud? And since Watson has such high performance, I have to start again?
No.
Okay. And since Watson has such high performance, you're going to need a very high performance network, not the public internet with guarantees. So you can comment from the IBMers on how Watson will be accessed in the cloud and what the network that will deliver those services will be.
Right. So let me take a shot at that, and we have more detail on that. Actually, 3 models. This goes back to my establish, extend, and embed ecosystem. So let me respond to the third consumption model, right? For the ecosystem play, and that's exactly how those 3 apps are built. Watson today, it's not public as an open access. Anybody, you know, it's not complete self-service and provision your own sandbox. But that is the process we have put in place for the partners that are coming through. And so the app builder, you can build your app, run it wherever you wish. All you're doing is consuming a RESTful API. And this is a Q&A API, right? So it's question answering. So, you know, network speed and so on, I'm not, you know, if you put it in the context of the use case, you're doing your guided selling, you're making your travel plans, you're looking at the procurement apps. Network speed isn't quite figuring into at least the use cases we have.
I was thinking of very much high-performance, real-time applications.
Where you're going to have a Q&A, a reasoning engine supporting Q&A for sort of natural language.
Simulations, modeling, weather forecasting, those kinds of typical supercomputer applications.
Right.
Are they going to be made available to the rank and file end users or not?
As of now, that's not exact. You know, it depends if you have partners from the ecosystem who have something unique that they want to bring to the table. But that, our initial verticals of focus are healthcare, retail, financial services.
So I'll give you an example, something I did a long time ago. I did a computer simulation of a naval war exercise on 2 mainframe computers. Anytime soon I'll be able to do that on Watson in the cloud or not?
Well, again, I think the technology is a natural language understanding and a reasoning engine, right? That's what the core capability is, as one of the, at the heart of it.
Sure.
I think if I just interject here and try to quick. So what we are making available is a platform which entrepreneurs like people in this room will have the ability to reach and develop their own apps which they can monetize. So if somebody in the audience today listening to you decides to make that simulation app, or maybe it's just yourself, you can apply to be a partner and make that app, and then sell that service to rest of the world, well, you get rich and you get to use the power of Watson. So it's just a matter of opening up your mind to creativity, to innovation, and dream as big as you can, and you'll be able to build applications which, if at all they are able to use the deep QA technology and the natural language processing abilities of Watson, then you have it without having to invest any time, money in developing those basic.
So it's more the natural language rather than the processing power.
It's a natural language QA interface
Q&A interface.
as a consumer of the service.
That's important. Thanks for clarifying.
And maybe to make just a quick analogy, and I think one of the useful things that on this point I got from actually the Watson CTO at this event where we were in Austin, right, is this concept that you can take different data sets and map them into natural language. So you could take, I think, the description of your simulation system and then turn it into a bunch of documents and then ask an unstructured question over those documents. I don't think today, the goal is to run the simulation as you intended, right? But you could ask questions about it in a more general way than the simulator itself would.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Walter Chang. I'm a principal scientist at Adobe Research in the Text Analytics and Natural Language Lab. So first, I think Watson is actually a very spectacular accomplishment, and kudos to IBM. A question to the panel is that when you're a customer, you're using an IBM sort of proprietary technology that has underlying DB2, has underlying text analytics, and so is that a concern that your customers, your ventures, will be locked in an IBM solution?
Mike. Maybe in the answer we'll try to rephrase the question. Yeah. So Tim, do you want to take a shot at that? I mean, the question is. Go ahead.
Go to Mike now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So the question is that Watson is a very amazing technology, and that it's also an IBM proprietary technology. If businesses are developing new ventures, then you're going to be effectively, it seems, locked into IBM's technology from the Watson layer down to the text analytics, down to the database layers, to the workflows. Is that a concern, or how would you mitigate that?
Yeah, so I can give you the the response from a board member of several software companies. I think when you move into a services-oriented architecture and services-oriented world, you're living by an SLA, which you expect the service provider to deliver, and you actually. I don't care about what your compute layer looks like, what your storage layer looks like, whether you're using a database or non-SQL interfaces. So as long as the API is clean and is performant, for that particular service, that's about what matters. So I think the underlying technology stacks get, they get hidden from the consumption model that they're proposing. And that's certainly the way we look at it from a venture capital or a startup company standpoint. Now, it's a very good question when you start getting to scale. That there might be a very, very big application that might need a different sort of SLA, global SLA, multi-language SLA. There are other dimensions to the question, which I'm sure IBM will respond to as the scale gets up there for the cloud service. But in the ecosystem that they're kicking off right now, I think the underlying layers are very well hidden, and I'm sure the startup companies can probably comment on that.
I think you're asking, do you care about lock-in? I think that's the way I interpret your question. And I guess my answer is, for the next 10 years, I really don't. In this particular domain, there's just so much value associated with that if one player has a particular amount of lock-in value extraction from us, it's probably okay, given the amount of value that's being unleashed. Now, over the long run, we've got to have other options. And as our use case becomes commoditized and as new entrants come, I'm sure the market will normalize. But it's not like influencing my decision to be excited about Watson at this very moment, or our customers' decision to be excited about us and our using Watson. But I mean, it's something we've certainly talked about. It's not like a stop factor for us.
There's just one more point, which I think is a maybe buried in your question, which is, I can imagine a world in which, let's say, you're processing 50 million queries a month using Watson, and there's all this metadata that you're creating inside of Watson that you want to ingest inside your application workflow. And that would be very valuable and useful for the application provider. So I would expect Watson to release or have those APIs that give access to the kind of data. Because you might have a question, how many times did my application actually ask a question of type X or from GOY? That's all metadata. And I expect the interface coming from Watson to give us access to that.
Well, either from Watson or, once again, it's an innovation economy. One of the entrepreneurs could build an app for this. And again, my point here is that the more it gets used, the more it becomes efficient, and the more new innovative applications entrepreneurs in the room here are excited about, this technology will get better with time, and price points will come down.
All right. There was a question from there. I'm just watching the.
One for the mic. He has the mic. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. We'll just go on over. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So
Can you help?
You mentioned Watson has a little bit of an ability to be proactive. So you're a doctor, you're operating, and it might suggest a few things you could do. So Watson can understand English, and it can construct a solution in English. So when might Watson be able to integrate other types of languages like programming language? So maybe you're working on an app, and Watson can help you fix bugs. But instead of saying, hey Watson, how do I figure out this type of a question, what's a better way to develop this app? Then maybe Watson can actually take a constructive approach and write code, and actually write apps. So you're going from constructing a sentence to constructing a program, which are tons and tons of sentences in different languages.
Yeah.
Is that possible in the foreseeable future?
So that's certainly an exciting futures kind of direction. Yeah. But so that's not direct, where currently our research is headed. But certainly sort of programming this, developing this NL interface and capability, extracting the semantics of that, and then implementing, executing a set of actions. I think that's how really I understand it. I want to answer it differently. We've actually got Watson going to med school. I don't know if you've seen that. I don't know if it's in here. But the research is now working on getting Watson to take the MCAT. And then after that, and not just the MCAT, right? Actually pass the board exam, right, for med school. So that's an example, in my mind, that's an example of a specific task you train Watson to do in order to, and because you've understood the natural language, you've trained it to execute that act.
Are you going to let it practice medicine?
Yeah. It will always be an advisor. It will always be an advisor to assist the human experts in the room.
Let me add that, a trusted advisor.
When I was speaking to some of your colleagues in Austin, I was really excited to hear about Watson going beyond mere data and language and getting into the world, for example, of the visual spatial world and understanding that. So I think they have grand ambitions to go into new areas like that, and maybe one day into programming and stuff. So they're thinking big. It's very exciting.
Yeah, please.
So Watson has been around for 2 years now, and there are other companies that are trying to develop similar products, like Google now or something. Why hasn't this taken off, really? Is there any adoption barriers as such? Whether there are barriers with culture, the barriers with integrated technologies, why isn't this thing not taking off? There's an article yesterday about, Wall Street Journal about, why is IBM struggling? And the second question to Tim is, your company seems to be focused on enterprise. Can you comment on, in natural language processing, understanding, machine understanding, where are you guys investing specifically in the enterprise space, or other venture funds are investing? Thank you.
You want to go first?
Just one quick comment about this. I worked on speech recognition for a little while, which I just saw that you also started.
That was my first coding job for IBM.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that people say in speech is it's the technology of the future and always will be. And I think the analogy I would make, right, is that speech recognition is an AI complete problem, right? And so expecting that one day computers will just completely perfectly transcribe speech is kind of a losing proposition, just because it's so hard. Now, of course, Google SR has become superhuman, actually, so there's hope there. But I think the challenge in a lot of these applications that are more cognitive in a sense is to put them in the path where they can help you, even though they may not be completely accurate, or they may not be completely precise in their response, right? And so I think that's where, especially for data analytics, it's kind of an interesting problem. So to give you an example, right? Schema matching is a very old problem in databases, right? And there are no complete solutions, right? Because it has to do with all the assumptions that the humans put in. So if Watson can give you some hints, it may not be completely right about solving schema mapping, but it might actually, speed you up. So I think the apps need to just iterate to what the tech can do. Is my view on that.
And for the second part of the question, I think, so I'll give you the Sierra perspective and maybe a couple of comments. So one is there's certainly big data, just for big data's sake, is getting pretty boring, just from a VC standpoint. There are 50 companies that do some version of NoSQL, and I mean, you look at the dots, and it's there are going to be 49 deaths on that little quadrant, right? A couple of companies are going to make it, so that's not that interesting. And I think the market has shifted up from just where you lay out the data and how you lay out the data to actually analytics and advanced analytics, right? And so I think there's a ton of innovation still in the analytics space, what's being called predictive analytics, because you need to bring the analytics to the data, because the data footprint is getting so large. So there are these sort of techniques that you can break down analytics workflows and then run them against where the data sits on Hadoop or whatever the backend might be. So that's one stream. The other stream is vertical big data companies. So it's certainly my thesis and Sierra's thesis that just like you had Oracle and SAP and others that had a vertical transactional application, there'll be companies that have vertical application that sit on big data footprints, that is big data, analytic workflow, and then the application itself. And there are certain companies we've backed in sort of genomics, for instance, which is a very interesting space and just starting to take off. So that's sort of a second sector. And then third, and coming back to Watson, is I still think if you think about the BI problem, and you think about where's BI going to go, and you look at Tableau and ClickTech and a couple of other companies, there are $2-3 billion companies, including some new entrants. Splunk obviously out there trying to reinvent itself. I think the BI problem also needs to go in the direction of NLP, because it is really hard to construct a query even against a relational database if you don't know the schema a priori. And that is a stupid way of extracting information. So I think, and I'm directly looking for and have looked at companies that are taking the old BI metaphor, which today is still very much, take this fact against that dimension and give me a bar chart. Why can't you just say, hey, who are the top sales guys, how did the sales guys perform last quarter? And the system to understand what that means, what is the object, what is the schema, translate all that and just push it out to you. So there's innovation that's going to happen in BI, which is a big market, and things like Watson and interfaces like that, I think will power that. And certainly, I think that's where the next large BI company is going to come from. That's our perspective, and we've been wrong before. So don't write that down.
Okay, great. So yeah, just follow up on the previous question and the first half of the question. Just an observation. When computers first came out, everybody was very apprehensive. Oh my God, they're going to replace us, right? Banks wanted to implement them, and people in banks they were refusing to use them. This is a long time ago. And today, I think with Watson, the same thing may be happening, is that Dr. Watson and Lawyer Watson is ready probably, or can improve and can do a lot of the functions that the doctors and lawyers do. However, I think that the end user is probably resisting the change because of some fear. What is IBM doing to reduce that fear, alleviate the fear? And as somebody pointed out, like maybe these people can now do the higher level functions that need to be done so that Watson can do what it is really good at, remembering data, retrieving data, and using it, putting it to good use.
Yeah, sure. So let me combine that with the first question on that topic, right? So this came out of the gate just about 3 years ago, right? So I think the first order of business was to establish the brand. Can we actually deliver business value that is compelling in a particular vertical with the healthcare and get buy-in? I'll just take one example. So concrete, it's an enterprise example, but in the WellPoint solution that we have, which is the utilization management. Basically, Watson Advisor is inserted into the pre-authorization process. So you have all the medical guidelines policy information, you have your patient records, and there is the pre-authorization process is a manually intensive process. Watson Advisors have been inserted. We started with 5 providers who were willing to sign up, WellPoint providers that wanted to use this. Today we have 2,200 providers. So it's a path we are on, it's a journey. We went there, we put the brand out, we built the solution, and now we are slowly sort of commercially hardening it and then deploying at scale. So in terms of bringing it to the masses, I would say one of this ecosystem strategies is one of those components to bring it out there, because we are not going to build all the applications. The applications are going to come from here, right? And you are going to build the next generation of consumer-facing applications. So we're on that path, and we are seeing increased traction over the beach.
Just to add on to that, yes, we are on the journey, and we want the entrepreneurs to do this. And to the point that you mentioned, I think it was 2 TiCons ago that Vinod Khosla told our kids at TiCon that, kids, Watson is out there, so don't go for medicine school. Yes. So now you're saying, don't go for law school? What are our kids going to do then? Well, I've already answered, and you had that in your question. So there'll be higher level jobs, there'll be better things that we'll find to do, and hopefully it'll be better for the humankind.
My question would be a very fundamental one, which is to do with the business model that you have said about implementing with the Watson being now the new Sherlock Holmes, by the way. So what is the business model here which we can expect as entrepreneurs to interface with Watson, and whether it's different for enterprises like WellPoint and also?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
3-part, longer conversation, but the short answer, what's the business model, particularly in the context of the ecosystem? So I think, so we do have classic enterprise DNA, right? So 3 models for the classic enterprise use cases, what we call transformative, sort of the WellPoint, so Memorial Sloan Ketterings and so on. For those, we have a value-based pricing business model. So that's kind of a pure enterprise play. For the second, extend model, where we are bringing it into consumer service and customer service and so on, we have a purely volume-based transactional business model. But for the ecosystem model, which is more relevant here, it's really a revenue-based, a percentage of revenue-based. So it's neither of those. So we've understood the class of applications built by each sort of constituency, and we have business models, and the first 3 partners that you see, they're all in the process of formulating that third business model.
And of course, the corollary of that would be, what kind of support can we expect from IBM and Watson's team when we have to interact and develop applications? Is it just the developer's kit, or we'll have assistance of Watson itself and, of course, people behind it?
Yeah, so this was part of my ecosystem, absolutely. Watson, I think in each of those 3 cases, actually, this was almost sort of co-located, co-development examples, because these were the first few partners. So assuming you've got the ideation piece, that you're bringing that, brainstorming on the use cases. What questions can Watson really answer? What corpus? What data domain are you going to stand up? Are you going to bring your own content? Or is it part of Watson's content store? And then, of course, the API. How do you consume that in the context of the UX you want to deliver? Right? So we'll have technical skills. We'll have, in addition to the SDKs and all of that, we'll have technical skills, as well as business development and go-to-market solution development. So I think a very broad base of IBM capabilities will be invested with our partners.
I thought Savita was going to say, call the 800 number and Watson will answer it.
Soon.
So we have a question over here, and I wanted to add, if we could limit the questions to those who have the mics. So raise your hand and I'll combine it.
So how difficult is it to build this application using Watson here? So, if you were to build this medical doctor Watson, right? Exactly what are we supposed to give it? We just kind of tear pages from your medical book and give it to it and it just figures out everything? Or, as a developer, what am I supposed to do? And what skills do I need to actually consume Watson in a meaningful way?
Yeah, so the first order of business is content domain, right? What is the So think of it as a book, right? So you've got, volumes, you've got a library full of books. If the answer is in that library, Watson can answer that for you. So for your problem domain, for your innovative solution, what is the content that you want Watson to access to respond in the context of the interface? That would be the starting point. You can talk more. Yes, someone has a mic there, sorry.
So Google has this massive search engine which pulls the information from all over the world. So if Google were to take this, a vertical, and pull all this knowledge and concentrate and aggregate and throw behind it the power of a data center such as HANA, massive with they're building 256 terabyte of memory, how will that system look like or compared to Watson?
Yeah, so first, so I'm not going to be able to obviously comment on Google plus HANA, what does that mean to the enterprise, so that there is a perspective there, but I do want to kind of share our perspective here. So we really see search and discovery, or Q&A, as two different capabilities. So the search paradigm that we are all so well trained on, distill the thought process in your mind into a few keywords, make that search, and be presented with the most coherent, most relevant set of documents, and the skill to scan those documents and find the information that you're looking for. That's a model we're all so well trained on, right? But what Watson brings to these class of applications, it's not the search paradigm. What it is bringing is, I've got this patient EMR, I've got all this oncology diagnosis, and I've got this latest literature, and here's the current treatment path I'm on. I don't have the domain expertise in that. But I'm on this path of this treatment, process, and what is the other? Let's leave that alone. Let's take the Fluid, the guided selling application, which is a more consumer-facing application. I'm going to the south of France. I want to go to the south of France for a winter, vacation with my family. What should I be thinking about? That is exactly the Fluid use case. So I would encourage you to think through kind of use cases like that and see what we would be doing with the search metaphor and how the Fluid application is working in terms of guided selling. So I think the use cases are different, the situations are different.
So Savita, just to add on to the keywords are artificial, questions are natural. And just like childlike curiosity you have, ask questions and the system will learn more and become more efficient for you, and that's how your apps will also become more intelligent.
And the only thing as an ex-Google guy, what I would say is, Google is a consumer company, right? And at least to me, building Metanomics, right, I see Watson as an interesting back end that I can integrate into an enterprise product, right? So it has a lot of the considerations of data security and data management and some of those things that an enterprise customer would be very concerned about. Whereas I think Google is maybe a more general system.
But I was thinking what the next step if Google were to start aggregating all that knowledge and put it into the knowledge database and start building a cognitive engine, they get very close to to Watson. That's where I was leading to.
Sure, and I think certainly Google reasons to the degree that it can, right? But I think insurance claim document portfolios are probably something that an insurance company would hold very close inside of the company. Now, maybe one day Google would want to build enterprise products. I don't know. That'd be great.
So I think there's a question here.
No, over here. So I have two questions. The first one is, my professor always tell me that to get a good answer, you have to ask good question. So this Watson has like a good feedback system that I can, when I didn't get my desired answer, can I get a feedback so that kind of like build my own machine learning so that I can ask more and more better question or train Watson to give me more better answer for me. And then the second question is like, if my competitor, they also use Watson, is there like a kind of like a privacy system so that I cannot ask them that, oh, what's my competitor's app? What kind of question my competitor has?
Those will be the next generation apps. But let me respond to your first question. So yes, I think the model is absolutely learned, right? It's three key components: natural language understanding, right? All the parts of speech parsing, all of that. First order businesses understand the question and map that, generate candidate answers. The second component of this, if you look at the data pipeline I'm looking at, I see that figure, is hypotheses generation and evaluation. Go to all your data sources. Go find all the possible candidate answers to the question that you have so well understood and produce them as, sort of in a ranked list with confidence levels and probabilities associated with the different hypotheses. And the third component is what you're saying, adapt and learn from user feedback. So if you said, well, I want to go to the south of France to do X, well, what are these some of the activities that you wanted? Or did you mean this, right? That's the feedback loop of adaptation and learning.
Over here. So today I think we discussed a lot about Today we discussed a lot about cognition and learning by Watson. So how do we verify that Watson has not learned an incorrect legal or medical lesson basically? How do you verify? Is it an automatic process or manual process?
Yeah, so upfront, when we stand up a new domain for any, like we did for healthcare, and there is a period in Watson's life cycle where you teach the system. So you've got ground truths you're feeding it. You're literally feeding it Q&A pairs. So in our healthcare use cases, the clinicians and the doctors are actually training and teaching Watson. So it's generating, even today, this morning in New York City, they started with Memorial Sloan Kettering, MD Anderson, we started at 30% accuracy when you're standing up a brand new domain. By the time the doctors are done with the teach phase, this is a 30-day process where there's a certain number of Q&A pairs you have to answer, you're up at 95% plus. So there is definitely a teach phase where you're going to train the models.
Let's take another example, the education, right? So you have employees joining you, fresh grads joining, and they need to be taught the employee culture, the company culture. They need to be taught about the products the company is selling, the pricing, and how to go and sell. Guess what? Watson can be used for it. Watson Sales Assistant. And we've done that by training, by using the experienced staff to feed Watson and checking the answers that come out of that, and thereby Watson is trained, thereby fresh new joinees can come up to speed much faster and be more productive.
Question here. On with Walmart e-commerce, I think Watson is one of the endeavors to get closer to cloning a human body and a brain and a mind, right? So, in a way, so one of the toughest things human beings cannot do is unlearn something that they learn, right? So, how good is Watson in that? Is it being built in the system? The second part of the question is, are you going to limit to Q&A, or are you going to start processing transactions? Like, I'm going to add on to the Google question, because Google was just a search engine, but now you can do a lot more than search. You can look for a TV, you can place the order on the TV, you can even get it delivered through Google Express if you live in the Bay Area. So is that the roadmap of Watson?
So I'd respond, so for the second part, I kind of have to remind myself of the first part. Second part, the transactional aspect is really what your application is choosing to do. It's not, it's not Q&A alone. It's basically, think of it as a reasoning engine, a Q&A and a dialoguing and an interaction reasoning engine over large amounts of unstructured information. If the fluid application is exactly that. You've talked about where you want to go, what you want to buy, what's important to you, the colors, you've done all of that through natural language. The fact that Fluid actually is delivering, running Nordstrom's transactions for you, the end user and consumer and me, that is the application's purview. That's within the scope of the app. That is embedding this reasoning and dialoguing capability.
I get that. My question is more of, is Watson going to evolve into doing that by itself, by himself?
At this time, we have a lot of sort of, IP to sort of refine and develop as we are making our foray into new verticals. So still the core Q&A reasoning engine is where a lot of our energy and research efforts are concentrated.
By the way, one quick comment about the question about error rate, right? Clearly any learning system and any reasoning system is going to have some kind of error rate. One of the applications that we're looking at in one of our customer discussions is basically helping humans who are doing a task that is extracting information from a document set, right? And they're going to look at signals from different places to answer questions about that document set. Watson will be one of those places, ideally, right? And then sometimes it'll be right, sometimes it'll be wrong, right? But at the end of the day, it's the human that's making the call. And I think for many applications, it's an issue of okay, well, how many human hours can you afford for this, right? Is this data valuable enough, right, that you want to spend human time for it? Or is it sort of a tale of something where you'd like to have an answer, understanding that, you know, it might be wrong and that you may need to review it later? I think, and speech apps, I think, have gone that way as well, as we were talking about before.
I'm sorry, please.
Okay. You know, as an entrepreneur, if I was trying to use Watson to make an app, say in the hospitality space or something like that, in that the hospitality space, I'd probably have some people on my team that were user experience and user interface people. I'd have some people that are database and business analytics people. Do I need to add ontologists and knowledge engineers to go out and take advantage of Watson?
Yes, not quite ontologists, right? But definitely NLPC. How am I going to insert NL queries into my application to deliver the UX that I'm looking to deliver? We were working with a couple of travel companies. We worked with Terry Jones, founder and CEO of Travelocity, Kayak, and all of those. We've got a number of travel use cases that we've been looking at. So the skill that you don't want, the fact that we might have an ontology for each domain is under the covers. It's all delivered to you, it's part of our models that we built. But from a consumer, as a consumer of the API, you're basically going to need to look at QAPI. What does that RESTful QAPI look like? When do I insert it in? Is it synchronous, asynchronous? When do I show my results? What do I want to do with the confidence levels? How many results do I want to show? That's really what you'll do right now.
A question over here. Hi, first, I'm probably the only one here in the room who's not happy you launched this, because I'm from once. And I'm the product manager for Nina Mobile, and the Nina product line. We do exactly the same thing that you guys do and we compete, so. But my question it's probably to Tim, but anybody else can answer as well, is we've been tackling this problem for like 15 years now. And we are now competing with you guys in the same space. I know the fancy words like cloud and you scale this, it's good here, but what we are learning is it's not an easy problem even to solve. And the product versus professional services mix for solving NLP problems for large Fortune 500 companies is still like 80% professional services and maybe 20% product. And that is primarily driven by enterprises being extremely skeptical about their data, whether it be speech or NLP data or even text data, being mixed and matched with, somebody else. And you talked about a closed loop system where, you have more and more data, and you can learn from it. But what I'm learning is enterprises are not open to that. So what's your view on, where this is heading? Because we can't solve this problem with just one company's enterprise data. It has to scale, right?
I think that's a great observation, and I think you're exactly right. And what I'm seeing in some of the companies that we've seen come through and also back is this emergence of what's called the fourth tier in a classic enterprise architecture, which is the edge. And this edge consumes a bunch of API-driven services. And actually, this is the edge where you can have your own data sets, which are application specific. So, in the case of this edge being used, let's say for, an application that's in the travel space, or one of the domains that you're talking about, we have companies that have enterprise data coming in on the one end, and on the other end you have public data coming in, and then getting cached and analyzed and melded together in this fourth tier and then delivered asynchronously to the mobile application. So architecturally what's happening is there's this emergence. It's kind of like the second coming of BA. I don't know if you people are probably not old enough to remember. BA was, the middleware company which did this on top of a transactional data store. And now, because we're moving into a world which is API and services driven, melding the enterprise data into the public data set is indeed a very actual architectural problem, and it's very, very vertical and context specific. So that's how this is being cracked today, and I think you're going to see a lot of that going on, because it's a very, you have to maintain state, data state in a place other than the service. And you need to pull it out of Watson or whatever the service might be. And that's architecturally, that's how that's being done and delivered. And you're going to see a lot of those implementations.
And for example, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask more questions. Like do you plan to delete the data after the system is learned?
So during the learning process, the learning is actually stored finally as scores in the model, right? That's what's happening. It's a parallel machine. So during the teach phase of the system, in fact, we've got exactly this question. I fed the corpus this amount of content, but actually I don't want that knowledge in the engine, right? That exactly. So what we actually had to do at that time was reteach it. That's what we did at that time. But whether that's really a sustainable approach, it's not.
By the way, just to jump in on this, I mean, I mentioned before that data flow analysis is one of the areas that Metanautics is really interested in. It's exactly for this type of enterprise concern. It's like, show me where my data is gone, right? It's my data. I'm really, really protective about it. And so being able to track that, hey, it went into the sandbox and never left this sandbox is a really, really interesting problem, yeah.
Is there like a community of developers where they'll be sharing on some code or openness?
Yeah, community of developers, yes. It should be in your handouts. It's not on the landing page. I would encourage all of you to go visit the Watson ecosystem landing page, submit your idea, your solution. Right there is a developers community. There are people chiming in, talking. There's 750 ideas that have come in that we're in the process of evaluating. They're all communicating. So please engage.
Okay, so my question is, so Watson, first of all, I have to compliment Watson. Watson is amazing technology. The problem I see, or the misconception, is around natural language processing. Natural language processing has been around for a long time, so why do we really need Watson to do that? I think what Watson does is far beyond natural language processing. What Watson does is natural language intelligence, which we don't talk about quite a bit. That's point number one. Number two, Watson does deep learning, which is very different from shallow learning, and we've been exposed to shallow learning for a very long time. In addition, Watson is very aware of temporal and spatial components. So it knows how to understand geospecifics when you ask. Especially with unstructured data, this is very powerful. But when you introduce Watson to an enterprise, you're dealing with tremendous amount of legacy, not just at the data, at the lowest layer of the data, where you're dealing with noise, data locked in legacy databases, data deluge problem, and the wrangling problem. Then you're dealing with business processes that are highly legacy. So the learning component for Watson is a challenge. And how are you seeing, I'm very interested in hearing your perspective about overcoming the business process challenge. I think we will overcome the data deluge problem and the data wrangling problem. There's 451 big data startup companies when I last looked. So that problem is just a matter of time. I think Watson is here to stay, cognitive computing is here to stay. It's a matter of time when we get through this process or this gap of business enterprises locked in deep, complex business processes, and how we teach Watson to overcome, understand that, and help us be the auxiliary component. So I'm interested in hearing your perspective.
So I would respond to that at two levels. So when you say, how do we teach Watson to understand business processes, today's model, the paradigm is insert it into the process that's full of inefficiencies. Add these advisors, augment the process to streamline the process. That's today's model. The humans are always there at pivotal points in the process, and they have the capacity to overrule and take advantage of the advisors. I'm not sure we're looking at this point, the class of applications we have, are not, from what I understand, you're saying, how does Watson sit above all the processes in an enterprise? So procurement processes. We ourselves probably have, up to about 1,000 processes that run within the enterprise for all our procurement and sourcing needs, right? So how can Watson sit above that and learn all the procurement processes, for example? That's not today's targeted use case is really inserting these advisors in the context of a business process to deliver value. But I think that's something to ponder further.
Yeah, and I'd actually argue that's not the high value, high impact place to insert Watson either, because going back to my earlier example of the CIO that's spending $50 million on net new business processes, it's the same reason why you still find, databases that are running ABAP 4 code and, sort of from 40 years ago, because there's no reason you want to rip those databases out, because they work fine. Same reason Oracle worked fine and SAP 2 works fine. So the question really is the value add for these new technologies as in these new business processes. Over time, some of this will go away. People might recode, one of the 1,000 processes, but I don't see a world where IBM is going to recode all the 1,000 processes with a cognitive engine. That seems, not like the best use of resource.
In fact, when you started talking, it seemed like as if you work on my team. Until you asked a question, and I can.
He wishes you work.
Absolutely, seeing after this. What I was going to say here is the business processes need to evolve. They need to, as the system is getting integrated, processes will evolve as well. But that's where you cannot displace the domain knowledge, and that's where you cannot displace the human beings totally. It is the augmenting of human capabilities, augmenting and making the business processes better that this ecosystem will make better, and it's not replacing it.
Okay. All right. I was just coordinating some logistics here. I think I'm happy to take some additional questions offline, but we have passed our time. So I'd really like to take a moment to thank each and every one of our panelists for bringing their unique perspective to today's discussion.
Tadim